Hello everyone. Today we will discuss about the third week of development, that is the formation of all the three germ layers. Okay, that is the week of gastrulation. So let's start. Now, in the third week of development, or we simply say the week of gastrulation, it simply means that there will be formation of all the three germ layers, formation of all three germ layers, right? It will be formation of all the three germ layers, and remember the three germ layers, they are the definitive ectoderm, definitive endoderm, and definitive mesoderm. Now, let us continue from the scratch. Like what we have discussed in the second week and the first week, let us just try to summarize it right now so that we can have a view like what we have to discuss further. So, you already know that yes, this was the trophoblast, right, which has been divided into cytotrophoblast and syncytotrophoblast. So, this is the trophoblast. Now, this trophoblast contains, yes, we have the amniotic cavity along with the epiblast and the amniogenic cells, right, and we also have this, the hypoplastic cells along with the Husser's membrane and the secondary yolk sac, right. So, all around we have this, yes, we have this extra embryonic mesoderm. So, I am not highlighting everything, but yes, remember this. So, yes, let me just label for you people. So, this you already know, this is the amniotic cavity, and this is the secondary yolk sac, Now, over here we have cells, right, and these cells are long, tall cuboidal cells. Yes, these cells are known as what? These are known as the epiblastic cells, right? These are the epiblastic cells, and over here we have these hypoblastic cells, right? Rest I am not drawing the amniogenic cells and the Husser's membrane. So, now what I am doing, I am trying to take a portion out of this, right? I am just trying to take these two cells out, right? I am trying to take these two cells out now, right? Only these two layers, Now, what will happen? These epiblast, right? So, let me just draw it. I'm just taking this layer out, these two layers out. So, you can see that these are long, tall columnar cells, This is the epiblastic cells, right? These are the epiblastic cells, right? So, yes, this is the epiblastic cell, and these are columnar cells, and these epiblastic cells will further form the, this is also known as the primitive ectoderm because it will form the ectoderm later on. So, remember it is also called as the primitive ectoderm. So, these are the cells which will form the primitive ectoderm later on. Now, we have these, cells called as the hypoblastic cells, the cuboidal cells you can see over here. Yes, these cuboidal cells. Now few cuboidal cells, okay, at one of the end, right, at one end of the embryonic plate, they will be elongated in shape, right, they will become elongated in shape at one end of the embryonic plate, and this is called as the procaudal plate. This is called as the procaudal plate, right? So remember, these are the hypoblastic cells, and remember, these are the cuboidal cells. These are the cuboidal cells, and these hypoblastic cells at one end will take the shape of tall, elongated, they will become elongated, right, and this is something which is called as the procaudal plate. Okay, so yes, what is procaudal plate? Basically, how it is formed, you already know. So you can write it over here also, that the few hypoblastic cells at one end, okay, they will be elongated, right, they will elongate, and this is something which is called as the procaudal plate, right, procaudal plate. Now it is the first structure that is indicating the head end of the embryo. Remember, it is the first structure indicating head end of the embryo. Right, it is the first structure which is indicating the head end of the embryo. Right, now this was the starting one. Now what will happen next? Try to draw it in a form of a flow chart so it's very much clear what will happen next. Now the epiblastic cells. Now if suppose, let us suppose this is the, okay, let us just mark it over here. Now let us suppose this is the head end or the cranial end of the embryo. And this one, this side will be the tail end of the embryo. जहाँ पे embryonic plate में जहाँ पे head end होगा, मतलब जहाँ पे procaudal plate होगा, that will be termed as the head end of the embryo, और जहाँ पे, and the opposite side will be termed as the tail end of the embryo. So now remember what will happen next. Now let us suppose this is the head end of the embryo, or I can simply say the cranial end of the embryo. Right, and let us suppose this side be the tail end of the embryo, or it is also the caudal end. Tail को caudal भी बोलते हैं ना, right? It is the caudal end of the embryo. Now what will happen? The epiblast cells from the tail end of the embryo, they will start proliferating and will try to reach into the midline. Okay, ये embryonic disc है, right? And they will start proliferating and reach the embryonic, or it will try to reach the midline. Okay, they will move towards the head of the embryo. Right, they will try to move towards the primitive streak, but they will never be able to reach the primitive streak. So let us just draw it. So you already know that we are drawing the epiblast with the blue color. So yes, now let us suppose these are the tall columnar cells, right? These are the tall columnar cells. And from the tail end, what will happen? These epiblastic cells will proliferate, okay? They will differentiate and they will start moving towards the procaudal plate. You already know the procaudal plate over here. yes, the procaudal plate, it defines the, yeah, the headed end of the embryo, whereas everything will remain the same. The hypoblast will actually remain the same, and this structure, these cells which are proliferating, okay, towards the midline, towards the procaudal plate, these cells are now termed as the primitive streak. Okay, they are now termed as the primitive streak. Primitive streak, right? Primitive streak, yes. And towards the, yes, remember, and towards the, yes, end over here, they will try to form a knot. They will try to form a knot, and this is called as the primitive knot. It is called as the primitive knot, right? These are more differentiating, and towards the head end, like it will form the knot, that is the primitive knot, or yes, it is the primitive knot, or it is also called as the Henson's knot. Okay, it is also called as the Henson's knot. Henson's knot. Now this primitive streak will give rise to all the three germ layers. Now this primitive streak will give rise to all the three germ layers, right? All the three germ layers. And remember, in order beta, in order. Now what it will do? The primitive streak will move down. अब primitive streak जो है वो नीचे की तरफ move कर रहा है. So नीचे क्या है? Hypoblast है. Now what it will do? It will replace the entire hypoblast. Okay, it will replace the entire hypoblast with the new cells. Okay, and it will form the endoderm, right? It will form the endoderm, and then it will form the mesoderm and then the ectoderm. So it is the primitive streak only, okay, which will go down. ये नीचे की तरफ जाएगा और ये क्या करेगा? जितने हाइपोब्लास्ट सेल्स है, ये क्या है? ये सारे के सारे हाइपोब्लास्ट है, right? You already know these are the hypoblastic cells. These are the hypoblastic cells. Okay, the hypoblastic cells. So what it will do? This primitive streak will go down. It will replace the entire hypoblastic cells, and again no, it will replace it with the new cells, and it will form the endoderm. It will form the endoderm. So if I ask you which is the first layer to be formed, it is the endoderm. So remember, it is the endoderm which is the first layer to be formed. According to the latest update, it is the first layer to be formed, right? Then similarly, mesoderm, that is the second layer which is formed, and automatically we have the ectoderm, which is the third layer to be formed, right? The third layer to be formed. So the primitive streak is the one which will give rise to all the three germ layers, right? Now, now after all the three germ layers are formed, what is the fate of primitive knot now? The primitive knot will also proliferate, okay, and it will go. अब देखो हमारे पास तीनों layers आ गई हैं, okay. We already know we have those three layers: ectoderm, endoderm, और बीच में क्या है? mesoderm, right? ectoderm, endoderm, और बीच में कौन सी layer आ जाएगी? That is the mesoderm, right? So this is the mesoderm. Now, what this primitive knot will do? It will go below. Okay, it will go into the mesoderm, right? Now, this primitive knot will replace the mesoderm in the midline. Okay, it will replace the mesoderm in the midline, and it will form, in the midline, and it will try to move forward towards the procaudal plate, right? It will try to move forwards towards the procaudal plate. Now what it is doing actually, primitive knot, it is actually going down, right? It is replacing the mesoderm in the midline, okay, and if it is replacing the mesoderm with the new cells, it is now called as the notochord. Okay, it is now called as the notochord, and it is actually the notochord. I can say it is arising from the primitive knot. It is arising from the primitive knot. Why? Because primitive knot, it is like going down and it is replacing the mesoderm with new cells, and that is something which is called as the notochord, right? So let's just draw it. Let's just draw it so that it's clear to you. You already know. Let us suppose that yes. Now this is the embryonic plate, which is like elliptical in shape, and I'm just watching this embryonic plate from the top. I'm just watching this embryonic plate from the top. So you already know we have, yeah, we have this procaudal plate. I'm drawing this procaudal plate with a dotted line because you're watching this embryonic disc from above. ऊपर से देख रहे हो तो procaudal plate तो नीचे की तरफ है ना, अगर ध्यान से देखोगे तो ये procaudal plate है, right? So this is the procaudal plate. Right? This is the procaudal plate, right? Now the notochord, it is coming. Okay, the notochord, for example, you already know we have the primitive streak, right? We have this primitive streak, and on the primitive streak we have this primitive knot. Primitive knot. Now what this primitive knot is doing, the rest everything, it is around everything. You can see this is the mesoderm, right? This is the mesoderm, right? Yes. I'm just highlighting it. Now you can see that this primitive streak will replace the mesoderm in the midline. Okay, it will try to reach the procaudal plate, but it never reaches the procaudal plate, right? It will try to approach, and this is called as the notochord. Now this is called as the notochord, right? This is called as the notochord. Now the mesoderm, it is like proliferating all over. The mesoderm, it is proliferating all over, right? So yes, if I ask you the notochord, it is actually formed from the primitive knot, right? And two structures that I have to talk about over here, it is the procaudal plate and the cloacal membrane. Cloacal membrane. Now these two structures, beta, these two structures, let us just try to see over here. Let us suppose this is the ectoderm. This is the ectoderm, and let us suppose this is the, yes, endoderm. Last की two lines repeat. So continue. Let us suppose that, suppose this is the ectoderm. This is the ectoderm, and this is the endoderm, right? This is the endoderm. Now in between, you already know that we have these. This is the mesoderm. This is the mesoderm, right? The mesoderm. So ectoderm, endoderm, and mesoderm, right? This is the mesoderm. Now there will be two places, okay, where this mesoderm will be absent, right? This mesoderm will be absent, right? And these two places, right, where this ectoderm and endoderm will meet with each other, and it will continue like this, right? There will be two places where this mesoderm will be absent, right? One place over here, see this place, it will be the procaudal plate, right? and this will be the cloacal membrane. Cloacal membrane. Now, procaudal plate will later on, it will later on give rise to the buccopharyngeal membrane, right? It will transform into the buccopharyngeal membrane. Buccopharyngeal membrane, which will give rise to the opening of the mouth. Now, there is a reason why over here the mesoderm is absent. Anyways, this thickening has to be ruptured, right? If mesoderm is also present, so rupture is, these membranes will not rupture easily then. For the rupture, see how the nature has done it, that the mesoderm, it is present at these two ends, absent at these two ends, only ectoderm and endoderm is present. Only ectoderm and endoderm is present, because anyways this part has to rupture in future, right? Buccopharyngeal membrane will actually give rise to the opening of the mouth, and anything which has to rupture, तो उसमें layers कम होंगी तो easily rupture हो जाएगा, right? So that is why the buccopharyngeal membrane, if I ask you, it is made from ectoderm plus the endoderm. It is made from ectoderm and the endoderm. But if I say the cloacal membrane, right? Now this cloacal membrane, it will give rise to the anal opening, right? In the future, anal opening. So this also like has to open. This also has to rupture so that there can be an opening over there. So that's why at these two places the mesoderm is absent. Okay. Now let us talk about the primitive knot. Primitive knot, you already know that it will go downward, right? It will go downward. It will replace the mesoderm. It will replace the mesoderm, right? It will replace the mesoderm. Yes, a cylindrical process will be formed. A cylindrical process will be formed, right? Then a canal will be formed. You don't have to know everything in detail. A canal will be formed, and later on, remember, it is the notochord canal, notochordal canal which is formed, right? And ultimately what is formed, that is the notochord, right? So notochord, it is arising from the primitive knot, right? Now notochord, it is extending to the procaudal plate, the head end of the embryo, and you already know the procaudal plate, right? The buccopharyngeal membrane will give rise to opening of mouth, and cloacal membrane will give rise to opening of anus, right? So yes, that was about the notochord. Now coming on to now see what is the function of the notochord. Now the function of the notochord is to stimulate the surface ectoderm, right? So if I just take this again example, ectoderm, endoderm, and in between, you know, we have the mesoderm, and in the middle of the mesoderm, you already know we have this notochord. The function of the notochord, it is to stimulate the surface ectoderm, right, and convert it into neuroectoderm. Okay, so the function of this notochord, it is to stimulate the surface ectoderm and convert it into neuroectoderm. So before coming on to that, let us just discuss the remnants of the notochord. The first one, it is the apical ligament of Dens. Apical ligament of Dens. Now you already know we have the second cervical vertebra, right? Second cervical vertebra is having a process that is called as Dens, and we have a ligament which is attached to it. It is called as the apical ligament. Second cervical vertebra pe na, this is, for example, it is the dense part of the second cervical vertebra, and to this dense part, the apical part, there is a ligament attached. And this ligament, it is called as the apical ligament of the Dens. Okay, so remember, that, yes, remember that the second cervical vertebra, it is having a dens, okay, it is having a dens, right, a process, and to this dens basically a ligament is attached. A ligament is attached, right, and that is called as the apical ligament of the dens. At apical portion, right, like this, at apical portion, so it is called as the apical ligament of the dens. Apart from that, you have to remember one more remnant, and that is called as the nucleus pulposus. Nucleus pulposus. Now, what is nucleus pulposus? You know, we have intervertebral disc, right? So, intervertebral disc, it is present in between the vertebra, right? You already know we have the intervertebral disc, and this intervertebral disc, it is present in between the vertebra. तभी तो हम लोग उसको क्या बोलते हैं, intervertebral disc. Now this intervertebral disc, the structure of this, it is containing a gelatinous substance in middle, and that gelatinous part, it is called as the nucleus pulposus, right? It is called as the central part, okay, the one which I am highlighting over here, it is called as the nucleus pulposus. Nucleus pulposus, and it is surrounded by, on the periphery, by a ligament, and that is called as the annular fibrous membrane. It is the fibrous membrane which is surrounding it. So nucleus pulposus, it is the central part of the intervertebral disc. So you have to remember, it is the central part of intervertebral disc. Central part of the intervertebral disc, right? Now again one more you can remember, that is the notochord anyways has to disappear, right? Their remnant is present in our body, that I have already talked about, the apical ligament of the dens or the nucleus pulposus. Apart from that, you can also remember about the membrane tectoria, okay, membrane tectoria, right, the membrane tectoria, or it is also called as the tectorial membrane, right? It is also called as the tectorial membrane, right? It is present in the upper part of the vertebral column, right? So it is present in, remember, present in the upper part of the vertebral column, upper part of vertebral column, right? So that was about the remnants of the notochord. Now coming on to the transverse section from the level of the notochord. Okay, you already know we have drawn this earlier also, right? So let us suppose this is the embryonic plate. You know, we have the cloacal membrane, we have the primitive streak, we have the primitive knot, right, and we already know we have this buccopharyngeal membrane, right, the procaudal plate, and we have the notochord in between. So this is the notochord, right, So at the level of the notochord we are taking a transverse section. So yes, at the level of the notochord, right? Now what will happen? Now let us see what is there. So you already know we have the ectoderm, right? We have this ectoderm. So let us draw the ectoderm with the same color that we are following right now. Yeah, we have this ectoderm. Yeah. Now this ectoderm, there will be a fold which will be present, okay, and repeat the last two lines, repeating last two lines. Now, what is happening? You already know the notochord, it will stimulate the surface ectoderm, okay, and it will convert it into neuroectoderm. It will convert it into neuroectoderm. So there will be a pouch-like structure which will be formed, invaginating structure which will be formed, and yes, it is like this which will be formed, right? So yes, this is called as the neural groove. This is called as the neural groove. ये जो आपको दिख रहा है अंदर groove जैसा, it is called as the neural groove. You already know this is the ectoderm. Ectoderm. So what what the notochord is doing? It is stimulating this ectoderm and it is converting this ectoderm into the neural ectoderm. And what is happening in this? That there will be a groove which will be formed, and that is called as the neural groove. Apart from that, you can see the folds of the membrane over here, and this fold which you can see over here, this is called as the neural groove, or sorry, the neural folds, right? Neural folds. And let us just complete the diagram. You already know below we have this endoderm, right? Below we have this endoderm, and in between we have this mesoderm, right? We have this mesoderm, right? So try to highlight it as we all are doing from, yeah, this is the mesoderm which is present over here, right? Now, you already know in the mesoderm, in the midline, what is present over here, that is the notochord, right? This notochord is present, right? And this is the mesoderm, right? This is the mesoderm. Now, what will happen at the margins of the neural fold? We have a special population of cells, okay? We have a special population of cells at the margins of the neural fold, and these special population of cells are called as the neural crest cells. The neural crest cells. The neural crest cells are also called as the NCCs. The neural crest cells. They are present on the crest. That's why they are called as the neural crest cells. Right, on the folding on the crest. Right. So yes. Now, these neural crest cells, they will detach themselves from the ectoderm, okay, and come to the sides of the neural tube, right? They will come to the sides of the neural tube. Let us just draw and see this. Now, you already know that. Let us draw the endoderm like, okay. Repeating last line repeating, yeah. Now you already know that. Let us suppose this is the, yes, this is the neural folds which you can see over here, right? Now what will happen? These neural crest cells over here. Now suppose this is the neural crest cell. These neural crest cells will like detach themselves from there, and it will come to the sides of this neural folds. Okay, they come to the sides of the neural fold. Now again, what will happen? Let us draw this. Yeah, the next step, what we will see that, yeah, the pouch will also invaginate. So I'm just drawing this ectoderm only. I'm just drawing this ectoderm. You can draw the entire thing again. So remember that this is the ectoderm only. So what will happen? This outpouching will be there, right? So yes. This is the, yes, it is the neural tube, right? It is the neural tube, and on the sides we have these neural crest cells, right? Neural crest cells, and below you already know we have this endoderm, okay. We also have the notochord below, right? We also have the notochord, we cannot forget it, the notochord. And yes, the in between layer, we already know it is the mesoderm. So you can just highlight in between, we have this mesoderm in which like everything is like present over here. Yes. So that was about the transfer section from the level of the notochord, right? Now the mesoderm. Now coming on to the mesoderm, let us draw a very simple diagram and understand. So you already know we have, yes, let us draw and understand. Now let us suppose this is the ectoderm, right? And below we have the endoderm, right? And in between you already know we have this neural tube, and below it we have the notochord, right? Below it we have this notochord. So let us just label this right now. Yeah, so this is the ectoderm, right? This is the endoderm, right? This is the, okay, let us mark it over here because I will be showing you the mesoderm. This is the neural tube, and this is the notochord. And what is present in between? It is the mesoderm. So yes, it is the mesoderm. Now where the neural tube is present, you already know it is the midline only, right? It is the midline. So yes, the names of the mesoderm will also differentiate into, yes, the mesoderms will also differentiate into 3 types that we will learn. Now this mesoderm which will differentiate, which is around the midline को हम लोग क्या बोलते हैं? एक्सियल स्केलेटन होता है, इसी तरीके से एक्सियल लाइन होती है. तो मिडलाइन में क्या प्रेजेंट है? न्यूरल ट्यूब और नोटोकॉर्ड. तो मिडलाइन के साथ, ओके, फर्स्टली या मिडलाइन के साथ क्या प्रेजेंट है? यू ऑलरेडी नो वन थिंग विच इज प्रेजेंट ओवर हियर, दैट इज द न्यूरल क्रेस्ट सेल्स, राइट? This you don't have to forget. These are the neural crest cells. Now along the midline, the mesoderm, it will be called as the para-axial mesoderm, which is parallel to the axis, which is parallel to the neural tube. So remember, the mesoderm which is, yeah, the mesoderm which is parallel to the neural tube, this I am marking with 1, right? Or you can just write it also. You can just write it also. So this mesoderm which is along the neural tube, it is called as the para-axial mesoderm. It is called as the para-axial mesoderm. It is called as the para-axial mesoderm. It is parallel to the neural tube. Parallel to the neural tube, or the neural tube, you already know it is in the midline or it is the axis. Okay. So yes, just okay. So para-axial mesoderm will be both the sides, right? It will be both the sides. Then we have another mesoderm which is developing. Yes, that is called as the intermediate mesoderm. Okay, this is called as the intermediate mesoderm. This is called as the intermediate mesoderm. Okay, it is called as the intermediate mesoderm. And the last one, it is towards the lateral side, so it is called as the lateral plate mesoderm. Okay, it is towards the lateral side, so it is called as the lateral plate mesoderm. Lateral plate mesoderm. So we have three types of mesoderm. Okay, we have three types of mesoderms. So just mentioning it. So the mesoderm, it is of three types. The first one, it is called as the paraaxial mesoderm. The second one, it is called as the intermediate mesoderm. And the third one, it is called as the lateral plate mesoderm. Lateral plate mesoderm, right? Now the paraaxial mesoderm, let us now discuss about all these mesoderms in detail. So the paraaxial mesoderm will give rise to somites, right? The intermediate mesoderm will give rise to urogenital system. Okay, the kidneys and the genital, the testis and the ovary. So it will be coming from the intermediate mesoderm, right? And the lateral plate mesoderm, the lateral plate mesoderm, yeah, it is further divided into somatopleuric. You already know somatopleuric towards the body wall, lateral plate mesoderm, and we have splanchnopluric. Splanchnopluric, that is towards the visceral organ. It is the splanchnopluric lateral plate mesoderm. Now let us discuss one by one all these three. The very first one, that is the somites, right? Now somites are basically developed from the paraaxial mesoderms. They are developed from the paraaxial mesoderms, right? Now let us suppose this is the neural tube, right? This is the neural tube. Now I'm writing NT over here. So remember, NT stands for the neural tube. Now, at the sides of the neural tube, what is present? The paraaxial mesoderm. Now, these paraaxial mesoderm will form some thickenings or some condensations or some ball-like condensations will be there, and these are called as the somites, right? These are actually the thickening of the paraaxial mesoderm. So paraaxial mesoderm will be present both sides, right? So yes, there will be ball-like condensations which will be formed. The ball-like condensations which will be formed, and this is called as the somites. Okay, this is called as the somites, right? So remember, yes, remember these ball-like condensations. Okay, these condensations, or I can say the thickening of the paraaxial mesoderm, it is called as the somites, right? Now there is something which is called as the somite period. There is something which is called as the somite period, and this somite period, it is from day 20 to day 30. From day 20 to day 30, right? Now initially, remember, initially 42 to 44 somites are formed, like 42 to 44 pairs of somites are formed, right? 42 to 44 pairs of somites are formed. We have the occipital somites, right? Then you already know the vertebrae, so just name according to the vertebrae. We have the cervical somites, then we have thoracic somites, lumbar somites, sacral somites, right? So we have occipital, cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and last one, it is the coccygeal somites. So remember, the occipital somites are 4 in number, the cervical somites 8, the thoracic somites 12, lumbar 5, sacral 5, and coccygeal it is from 8 to 10. So it is initially 42 to 44 pairs of somites which are formed, right? Now at the end, like some from the upper part and some from the lower part will actually disappear. So if I ask you the definitive somites, right? The definitive somites, they are actually 37 in number, which is left, or it can be 36 or 37 or 38. The best is to go with 37, right? Now let me just take one somite over here. You already know, let us suppose this is a somite, right? This is a somite. Now this somite, okay, it is having two parts, it's divided in two parts, right? Let us divide this into two parts. One part, it is called as the sclerotome, right? It is called as the sclerotome. So the somite divides into two parts. One is the sclerotome, and the other one it is called as the dermamyotome or dermomyotome. We have the sclerotome and the dermomyotome, right? Now coming on to the sclerotome first, right? Sclerotome, नाम से ही पता चल रहा है, it will give rise to skeleton. But which skeleton? It is the axial skeleton, right? So sclerotome, it will give rise to axial skeleton, and you already know the axial skeleton, we have which bones? Sternum aa gaya, ribs aa gaya, right? So it will give rise to ribs, it will give rise to sternum, okay, and the bones, and they will also give rise to annulus fibrosus. मैंने बताया था ना, intervertebral disc का outermost जो part होता है, that is called as the annulus fibrosus, जो periphery वाला part होता है. So it is the part of intervertebral disc, right? Now this sclerotome, it is divided further into ventral and dorsal sclerotome, right? It is divided further into ventral and dorsal sclerotome, right? Ventral and dorsal sclerotome. Now dermomyotome, you already know, if we just split the word, it will give rise to dermatome and myotome, and the name suggests derma means skin, right? And myo means muscles. So it is very easy, no need to ratify anything. So dermatome basically will give rise to skin, and especially the skin of the back, right? And the myotome, it will give rise to skeletal muscles. It will give rise to skeletal muscles, right? It will give rise to skeletal muscles, right? Now this myotome, it is further like divided, or I can say this myotome, it is further divided into epiaxial myotome, and it is the hypoaxial myotome, right? Now when I say epiaxial, लिख लेना इसको, it is the epiaxial myotome, means it will give rise to the back muscles, okay? Embryo का जो back है, so it is like erector spine है, all the back muscles, right? And hypo means आगे वाला जो part आ गया, right? So it will give rise to rest other skeletal muscles, and you already know rest other skeletal muscles means I'm talking about the limb muscles, the upper limb and the lower limb muscles, the intercostal muscles, and it will also give rise to abdominal muscles, right? It will also give rise to abdominal muscles. So this was about the somite, right? Now coming on to the lateral plate mesoderm. The lateral plate mesoderm. You already know. Let us just draw this. This is the ectoderm, right? This is the ectoderm, and let us suppose this is the endoderm. This is the endoderm. So, and in between, you already know we have the mesoderm. Right? Now, specifically, if I'm talking about the lateral plate mesoderm, जो mesoderm lateral site पर है. Now, what will happen? There will be a formation of coelom over here. There will be a formation of coelom over here, and this coelom, it is called as the intraembryonic coelom. It is called as the intraembryonic coelom, right? It is called as the intraembryonic coelom, right? Now, the mesoderm, right? The mesoderm which is towards the endoderm, towards the cavity wala part, towards the internal organs, this mesoderm, okay, will be termed as, this mesoderm will be termed as splanchnopluric. एंडोडर्म की तरफ है ना, अंदर की तरफ है, अंदर मतलब बॉडी ऑर्गन्स की तरफ है, so it will be called as the splanchno, it is called as the splanchnopluric lateral plate mesoderm. And the one which is towards the ectoderm or towards the body wall, the one which is towards the body wall, this mesoderm will be called as the somatopluric lateral plate mesoderm. It will be called as, yes, the somatopluric lateral plate mesoderm. क्योंकि वो एक्टोडर्म की तरफ है, तो लेटरल प्लेट mesoderm has two parts, somatopluric and splanchnopluric lateral plate mesoderm. Now, this intraembryonic coelom, it will give rise to, it will differentiate or it will give rise to, remember the very first thing, all the cavities, lateral side वाला जो part है ना, it is like all to the cavities, the intraembryonic coelom, it will give rise to the pleural cavity, the pericardial cavity, heart की cavity हो गई, lungs की, right? The pericardial, parietal pleura, visceral pleura सुना है, we have the pericardial cavity, and we also have the peritoneal cavity, right? Now, the somatopluric lateral plate mesoderm. So let us just write it over here. The somatopluric lateral plate mesoderm. It is the splanchnopluric lateral plate mesoderm. Now, somatopluric, you already know it is towards the body wall. So, अगर pleural cavity है, so we will have the parietal pleura, right? So, it will give rise to parietal pleura, or it will also give rise to pericardial pleura, right? And it will also give rise to dermis, the skin of the front and the limbs. देखो बैक वाला तो बन गया था, अब आगे का लिम्ब, ठीक है, फ्रंट का और आगे की जो स्किन है, तो डर्मिस ऑफ द फ्रंट and the limbs, right? And it will also give rise to appendicular skeleton. Appendicular means ये वाला जो skeleton है, upper limb वाला part और lower limb वाला part. So we have the appendicular skeleton. Splanchnopluric mesoderm, okay, the lateral plate. अगर ये parietal pleura को originate करेगा, somatopluric. So splanchnopluric will be the visceral pleura. It will be the visceral pleura, right? It will be the pericardial. Apart from that, we have the smooth muscles and the cardiac muscles, right? Smooth muscles and the cardiac muscles, right? So cardiac muscles, like at the cranial end, right? Cardiac muscles are right at the cranial end of embryo. At the cranial end of embryo. So this was about the lateral plate mesoderm. Coming on to one more important structure that is called as the decidua. Decidua, it is actually the endometrium. It is called as decidua, the endometrium after implantation. After implantation. After implantation. So let us suppose this is the uterine wall. Right, and in this uterine wall you can see, yeah, we have this. Okay, let me draw a double layer so that it's clear. Now we already know that, suppose let us see that this is the developing embryo, right? This is the developing embryo. Now we have three types of decidua. Okay, we have three types of decidua, and these three types of decidua, we have like decidua basalis, decidua capsularis, and decidua parietalis. We have three types of decidua. Now decidua basalis, if we talk about decidua basalis, it is lying below the blastocyst. It is lying below the blastocyst, or this embryo you can see, it is lying below the blastocyst, separating the blastocyst from the myometrium, right? So you already know that this is the embryo, right? So now you already repeating the last line again. Now you already know that this is the developing embryo, right? Now this is the blastocyst. Now decidua basalis is the one which will separate this blastocyst from the myometrium. You already know the uterus has three layers, right? The endometrium, myometrium, and the perimetrium. So this blastocyst, it is called, means this decidua, it is called as the decidua basalis, right? It will form the maternal side of the placenta. It will form the maternal side of the placenta later on, right? It will form the maternal side of the placenta, and it separates the blastocyst from the myometrium. Separates the blastocyst from myometrium. Right, it separates the blastocyst from the myometrium, right? Now decidua capsularis, it is the one, okay, which is separating the blastocyst from the uterine cavity. So if you can see over here, this one which I am highlighting with the green color, it is called as the decidua capsularis. It is separating blastocyst from uterine cavity. and yeah, and the entire decidua which is surrounding throughout, it is called as the decidua parietalis, right? Parietally, पूरी जगह present है. So it is called as the decidua parietalis. So this was all about the decidua that you have to know. Thank you.